In fact, the goal today is not to have gurus on the stage pumping a bunch of information out. The goal is to be somewhat provocative and to surface a lot of conversation. No one in this room has the truth on this. I certainly do not. I have some points of view, and I'm going to express my points of view. But everyone has a different, we're all touching sort of a different part of the elephant. And what we're learning certainly is it takes collaboration to take on this challenge. And so it's really important that as we're pushing ideas out at you, that you're writing down some notes to yourself and thinking about things that you want to surface with the group. Because our goal is to try to leave enough time in between these talks so that we can have a conversation. And we've got some people that have some mics. We'll see how the acoustics work. We can run around and pass around mics. But it's really important that everyone contribute. There is no right and there is no wrong. We do have a couple of people that had problems with planes, so the agenda may float around just a little bit. But we're a good-sized group. We can handle that. Real quickly, we spent quite a bit of time, and I don't expect you to read this, looking at goals for this. And there are some very specific goals that we have in mind. I'm not going to try and go through them, but as a group of presenters, we spoke quite a bit about what we wanted to do, set of ideas, and what we're going to do is we're going to capture this information that comes out of this conversation, and we're going to continue mapping it and developing it so that we have an institutional record of what we are putting together here. There are a set of issues, options. These are primarily AEC focused at this point. Clearly there are a whole range of options for us to consider. Mental models is a big part of this story, and there are stories to be told and questions to be asked. So with that, I want to start with surfacing an idea. And I want to acknowledge and thank Peter Marks, who came in the back, who has been one of my inspirations. Blind spotting is an important idea that he has brought forward here at COFES. And I want to talk about an aspect of blind spotting that's kind of personal to me. The reason I'm interested in sustainability is because I was raised an outdoorsman. And I spend a lot of time outdoors doing things. In particular, I'm a fisherman, spend a lot of time on whitewater rivers, running class 4 rapids, which is really a dumb thing to do. And I've done some dumb things, and I've asked myself why. There's this wonderful book out there that, much like Peter's work in terms of cognitive science, it's called Deep Survival. Who lives, who dies, and why? And he goes deep into what happens in our brains when we're outdoors, or when we're flying a plane, or we're in any kind of a stressful situation. And one of the chapters in his book is called Bending the Map. And this one really hit me over the head. Bending the map. It's a word that comes from the field of orienteering. So what do we mean when we say bending the map? Well, an example of not bending the map was Dorothy, when she said, "Toto, we're not in Kansas anymore." Dorothy looked around her and recognized that her reality had changed, and she needed to deal with it. An example of bending the map is, imagine that you've been hiking, and you got separated from your hiking partner an hour or 2 hours ago. And now you find yourself looking at your compass, your map, and you say, now hang on a second, there's supposed to be a lake right there. Oh, well, it must have dried up. Or, now wait a second, I know there's supposed to be a trail headed off that way. Well, they must have defunded the trail maintenance. Anytime you find yourself in a circumstance like that, the red flag should start going off because you are bending your map. And it can happen to any one of us anytime. You can imagine the person who leaves his wife of many years to chase someone else. We say that person has lost his way. You can imagine a corporation that is still chasing down some path while the whole industry has shifted. You can imagine an entire nation where the world has changed, but the nation now is beginning to go back and look at previous stories it had told itself. That's an example of bending the map. So it's critically urgent these days that we recognize this, because it turns out, from a neurological point of view, every cell in our body wants to be properly oriented, and we as organisms always want to know where we are at in relation to gravity, in relation to shelter, in relation to food, and in relation to sex. How many of you have ever truly been lost? Have felt the feeling of being lost? What was it like?
Frustratingly,
Somewhat scary. It's sheer terror. When we are lost, it is sheer terror. It is so much terror that our brains fight to maintain the illusion that we are in control of our view of the world, that we know always where we are at. That's bending the map. And I think one of the things we're going to see today are some other examples of bending the map. So Prasad, if you'd like to come up and switch this over.